It seems like every time I talk about old TV channels, I'm suddenly reminded of something I completely forgot about. And that's one of the reasons why I like making these videos. They serve as a way to jog my memory, for better or worse. However, I feel a bit different about the show I'm talking about today. Why? Because for the longest time, I was convinced it was a fever dream. Imagine my surprise when I found out that Crashbox did exist and I did watch it as a kid. If you haven't seen the show before, boy, you are in for a ride. So without any further ado, put on your thinking cap and let the games begin, because we're talking about HBO's Crashbox.
Jed, are you... Side.
And now for our feature presentation.
Crashbox was a TV show that aired on the HBO Family Channel in 1999. It was essentially an educational show meant to test the viewer's knowledge. Now, normally I'm not a fan of educational shows unless they do something to stand out from the others, and believe me, this show stands out well enough. Each episode consists of various segments, featuring different personalities explaining what the objectives are. These segments feature a very diverse cast of characters ranging from great to downright nightmare fuel, which we'll get to. And by the time you finish each episode, you forget what you were even supposed to do in the first place. Fortunately, there was a recap at the end of the episodes to remind you of the acid trip you just went on, keeping your mind sharp or something. Anyways, the show got 2 seasons with a total of 52 episodes. But if there's one thing that this show does well, it's getting your attention. Just from the intro, I already knew I was in for something I haven't seen anywhere else. The intro left me very confused, but still invested nonetheless. But now, it's time for the segments themselves, so let's get right into each one. But first, I just want to clarify that these segments... Uh-oh. I don't understand. Every day it seems to be the same problem. Alright, we're good. Let's start with one of the few segments that I actually thought was fun. This is Radio Scramble. Taking place at the radio station known as KBOX, the host of these segments is this microphone named Jumpin' Johnny Jumble, or Jumpin' Johnny Jumble. And that's the whole point of this segment. The main objective of Radio Scramble is to unscramble words. Usually these words are the titles of the popular songs featured in the segments. There's usually around 3 song titles that need to be unscrambled, with one of those being a commercial of sorts. Though if you listen to the songs, there are many clues that can help you figure out what the word is supposed to be. Sometimes they're very obvious.
H-I-D, pounding my brain. H-I-D, driving me insane.
I remember watching this segment as a kid and, of course, not knowing what I was supposed to do. But it was entertaining, though. The stop motion also helped it stand out, too. Overall, it's one of the better segments from the show. Let's move on to the next one. We're only one segment in and things are already falling off the rails. We now enter the psychedelic world of, well, psychomath. Your host in this segment is an amalgamation of parts called Professor Rocket.
It's time to do some psycho math.
Appearance aside, he's actually pretty cool. And for some reason, this is the second time I'm talking about a cobbled-together creature with human lips. Obviously, this segment focuses on math, but not in a normal sense. The goal is to figure out each math equation by only using descriptions of images. The specific numbers aren't even said, and you have to figure those out too. Essentially, they put a math problem inside your math problem. But this is honestly what made the segments fun. It's a perfect example of what a brain teaser is supposed to be. Even as an adult, it took me a minute to figure out the questions. But to be fair, I was always bad at maths, and I still am, so yeah. Another one of the better segments you'll find in this show. With all that said, let's keep going. So now we're on to a vor segment. I wouldn't be surprised if someone's vor fetish started here. This is Eddie Bull, and the zoo animals find him edible. This segment is a guessing game of sorts. What happens is a random zoo animal eats Eddie without chewing him, and it's up to the viewer to figure out what kind of animal ate him. As Eddie floats around inside the animal's stomach, he gives many clues to help viewers figure out what they're looking for. And to be fair, I did learn a few things from this segment. This continues until he's eventually digested and, well, everything after that. It's a rather middle-of-the-road segment, not a bad one though. Let's continue. On to 10 seconds, which I remember clearly. This segment was another guessing game, except you're only given 10 seconds to come up with an answer. The objective is to find out what phrase or term is being displayed using various hints, basically using literal examples to describe the phrase.
Ready to go on vacation? 'Cause it's spring break!
Every segment would end by reminding you of the same thing, to keep your feet on the ground and your head in the clouds. If only it was that simple. There isn't much else to this segment, honestly. I should take this moment to discuss the animation in the show. If you haven't noticed by now, Crashbox mostly uses stop-motion animation, as I mentioned earlier. But this isn't the only animation style used here. As you'll see later, the style changes a lot in this show. There's even some live action with the segment called Word Shake. I really do like that the creators went with this decision. Shows that utilize as many styles as they can always stand out from the rest. There's also these robots who appear during intermissions. These guys were always my favorite part of the show as a kid. It's just them working in this very trippy factory. Something about this environment was just cool to me. Anyways, back to the segments. Alright, let's get this one over with. I knew I was gonna have to revisit this, and I'm still mad about it. I absolutely hated this segment when I first saw it. This is the Revolting Slob. I'm just gonna keep this one short. It's a vocabulary game segment. The objective is to choose which word fits the narrator's description well enough. And then...
Disintegrated means broken into little itsy-bitsy pieces.
He dies in every segment. Well, the only takeaway from this is that they used puppets this time. Anyways, let's move on from this as fast as possible. Alright, this was a fun one. Sketchpad was a 2D animated segment which focused on putting together a sequence of events. Our guy Sketch here sketches out different scenarios. The only thing is, some of the pages are missing, leaving only the beginning and the end result of the scenario. It's up to the viewer to guess what events are missing that led to the end result. I was never good at this one either. Guessing games aren't exactly for me, but it was still fun trying to piece together the events given. Not much else to this one. Let's keep going. Now, there were a lot of segments that I didn't really watch that much, but they weren't interesting enough to have their own entries, so I'll do a lightning round for the lesser known segments. Here we go. Ear We Are. It's about ears. The viewer has to guess what's going on through the sounds given from the ears. Very weird. Poop or Scoop. The goal is to figure out which facts are true and which ones are false. Pretty neat. Wish we had this for the news nowadays. Page and Sage. Creepy. It's a spot the difference segment between these two characters. Mugshots. You're given mugshots related to a recent crime. 4 people in the photos give their sides of the story, but 3 aren't adding up. Find out which of the 3 are lying. Captain Bones, a skeleton that does math problems. He's got a bit of a temper, so don't get any answers wrong. And Lens McCracken. You have to help the detective identify the blurry images since he's pretty much blind. You never actually figure out what the image actually is. And now, on to the segment that I think everybody remembers the most from this show. This is Distraction News, starring news anchor Dora Smarmy.
And now, Distraction News.
The goal of this segment? Memory. What happens is the news report starts as usual, except at random a bunch of images and sounds pop up to distract you. At the end of the segment, the viewer must do their best to remember what the news report was about despite all of the distractions. I can already tell this was a pain for some, including myself. As a kid, I couldn't stay focused on anything. I barely even stay focused nowadays. But this segment was a nightmare for me. The segment uses cardboard cutouts this time, which I thought was unique. And interestingly, Crashbox wasn't even the last time Dora Smarmy was used for TV. There was a spin-off called Smart Mouth where she is once again a reporter, only this time discussing vocabulary words. I just hope the slob wasn't there. This also happened with Professor Rocket, who was in another spin-off called Who Knew. But overall, this segment was confusing, but I can see why some people enjoyed it. If your mind is sharp, this was probably easy. As I mentioned earlier, at the end of every episode, there was a recap of every segment you went through. It served to show you everything you supposedly learned that day, but honestly, it just had me asking myself what I was doing with my time. That's not to say I didn't like the show. For as bizarre and downright disgusting it did what it was intended to do, which was to keep me invested in the show. And yes, even I learned a few things from this show, believe it or not. Let me know what you thought of Crashbox down in the comments down below. But that's gonna do it for this one, folks. Thanks for watching this video. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to my channel for future content.